And Dr. Cobb, could you give our invocation for us, please?
Lord, we come to you and ask for your guidance today as we go through this budget. We ask that you watch over our troops. We ask also that you watch over the families of those affected by September 11th. And please give us guidance and wisdom in all things we do. Thank you. In the Lord's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Kara Callan Watts. Bill Anglin.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Juliet Coates. Here. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishenhawk. Here. Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Don Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr. Hannah Gloria Jordan. Terry Snell. Chris Soap. David Thornton.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
I would like to
We got a couple in the hallway.
take the chair's prerogative, if there's no objections, and to postpone the tribal council discussion until immediately after lunch. So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Any objections? Okay. Morning, Dad.
Good morning. Morning, Council. We'll pick back up here then with the judicial branch. That branch of government, as you notice, has a significant amount of budget from 06 and 07 that was unexpended. And I just wanted to point out briefly that that is related to the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. It represents the 650 of the 849 of 06 and over 400,000 of the nearly 800 of 07. You look at the judicial branch by funding source and you notice that a certain amount of that in 07 was coming from a federal grant, but the vast majority of tribal discretionary dollars, this of course funding the governmental function. Here you see the salaries and benefits, and again, the 06 and 07 vacant or unexpended dollars are related to that same Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. And you see the positions here related to that as well from the past that are not in this budget. And as we talked yesterday, that particular program has not gone away. It's just been moved over in this budget over to Human Service, Norman Merriman's group, and is budgeting to continue at a comparable level to its previous funding level from the federal government. The district court is a relatively flat budget compared to 08, but it does have a $117,000 31% increase over the 07 actuals, and that is partially related to a judicial expansion planning budget of $100,000. The Supreme Court has a $106,000 decrease, or 18%, over last year's budget, and $124,000 decrease over the 07 actuals, and again, that's related to the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. Without that particular program, this department's relatively flat. There's not a lot of movement within the judicial branch's budget. Are there any questions on this group? Again, take the liberty, Mr. Chairman, to just refresh what's behind in the book. As you notice when you go past the legislative review section behind the charts, and I've got the analytical review that have each department within the branch. Behind that you've got the 4-year history of budget versus actuals for all their programs. Directly behind that analytical review. Then after that you'll see the full-time equivalent, the staffing package of existing, vacant, and new FTEs. And then we go into the reports that are drilling down through funding sources and departments that are consistent with the prior year reviews. But again, each group, each tab's going to have the same reports behind it. With no question on that,
Yes, Mr. Embry.
Kelly, I guess, any discussion of a new courthouse or plans thereon is off the table
No,
this fiscal year?
no, there is still a planning budget. It falls under management resources for the courthouse. And the courthouse is part of the entire capital improvement plan that we are hoping to present at the Executive Finance Committee meeting next week.
but capital construction dollars are not contemplated in here, though,
Okay.
the actual construction of any buildings.
And actually, I think we may have a special Executive Finance Committee meeting to go over the capital improvements budget. Okay.
Moving right along. Okay, the next division would be the boards and commissions, certain select boards and commissions. This will only entail the Arkansas Riverbed Authority and the Employees Appeals Board. Let me see if I can get to the... Notice a significant amount of unspent dollars in the budget, but keep in mind that of the $384,000 in '06, 285 of that's Arkansas Riverbed. 300,000 of the 494 is related to Arkansas Riverbed. 370,000 of the 389 is the Arkansas Riverbed. And almost all of the 582 is the Arkansas Riverbed. These are DOI funds that are earmarked.
Mr. Baker.
What is the purpose of the Riverbed Fund, the Riverbed Commission, since we've had the settlement and this, that, and the other? Kelly?
I can give you my limited knowledge on that. We get some earmarked funds from DOI through our compact, and there actually is an Arkansas Riverbed Authority which consists of representatives from Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Choctaw. And the purpose of those funds is planning economic development around the riverbed. So that's what this budget is for.
But the 582,000 is all federal dollars?
Yes, it's all compact dollars.
Okay. And the other tribes have similar, or?
I'm not 100% certain. I think we may get the funds for the entire planning process. I'm not sure if the other two tribes actually receive any funding. I think because the Cherokees had the largest claim, they set the funds aside and give them to us through the compact.
This 582, is it new dollars, new federal funds, or carryover?
It's both. It's both. There's not been a lot of activity with that commission over the last few years, so this would be basically the accumulation of all the earmarked funds in that compact that were related to the Arkansas Riverbed.
Okay.
There is approximately 35,000 of that 582 that is related to the Employee Appeals Board. So try that 550.
Just a second. They're talking about the Riverbed Authority right now, and you had some concerns that would be the time, and I would yield.
Mr. Buster.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
I'll yield to Ms. Glory because she's probably going to ask the question. My question was, is who's on the board of the Riverbed Authority now?
There is a new person. I can't remember his name. Do you have that? I'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wood.
Kelly, the funding for the riverbed, what does that go to?
The funding for the Arkansas Riverbed Authority comes to us from the DOI compact. It is earmarked funds for planning economic development around the riverbed. And there's an actual commission. There are representatives from Chickasaws and Choctaws as well as the Cherokee.
And what is the grant amount?
Now, the full amount that is in the budget is $549,000, and that would represent new funding plus any carryover that had not been expended in prior years.
Now, is all of that federal funding?
Yes.
None of that is?
No tribal dollars.
No tribal dollars, okay. Because my concern is with the sale of the riverbed, that what we're doing now is monitoring the leases. And I wonder if that's not a more appropriate activity for Leonard Donaldson's department. But if this is all federal funding.
It's all federal funding.
And not a dollar of our tribal funds is going into it, well then, I would just propose that we leave it the way it is for the time being. The board used to be composed of representatives of the 3 tribes. Is that still true?
That is still true.
And there was the makeup was basically the director.
Yes.
And the director is still a Cherokee?
Yes.
And
it's a new person, and I apologize, I can't recall his name, but I'll get that for you.
And their activity now is to promote and develop what remains
there, any economic development. I know when I was at CNB, I was approached by a company that wanted to look into doing some sort of hydroelectric project. That was one of the proposals. So those are the types of projects that they're probably looking at.
I actually worked for them for 13 years, so I'm pretty well acquainted with all of their activities.
Yeah.
But if that is still every bit federal dollars, then we just need to leave it as it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon.
Would you have them come in and make a report to this body?
Okay, would you like that during the hearings or like at the Exec and Finance? Okay.
We need to know where the lease money's going and what's going on with it.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. George.
I would ask Kelly in that report that Mr. Thornton just asked about, that you give us an indication at any point if any tribal dollars ever becomes involved in an activity.
And that would have to come through this process as a budget modification, but certainly if any are requested, that should be described in the justification for it.
To answer earlier question, $325,000 of the 582 are prior year funds. 325. 257 are current year compact dollars. Okay.
Is that it?
Okay, moving right along. Here's the funding sources. The IDC pool, the small budget there, is related to the Employee Appeals Board. And here's the staffing, or salaries. Just really part-time positions in the Employee Appeals Board. It's all that's left in this budget now. Okay. Actually, looking at the budget and what's contained in it for the riverbed, it's budgeting a $100,000 increase or 22% over the 08 budget for the riverbed.
But it's all, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
but
George.
it's all federal dollars, right?
It's all federal dollars. And the budget is basically in contract services. Okay?
Riverbed actually used to bring in a little over $250,000 in oil and gas leases, and that was retained from the sale. So we should continue to get that, and hopefully that is going into the gen fund.
Yes, it is. Those, all of our royalties and lease income goes into general fund.
And did they ever release they were holding back in 02, they were holding back, it had gotten to almost $1 million because there was some litigation of overpay of certain tribes. I wondered if that ever got released.
That partial recovery of the riverbed settlement, we got that added on afterwards.
Yeah.
We got that $1 million.
I'll look into that to make sure. I know that it seems like just last year we got some additional, but I'll ask and get you that information.
Mr. Baker.
And while you're at it, there was a reserve left for the KUAs to try and go after. Has that been settled?
No, that is still out there as a reserve.
And,
It's $2 million. It was 10% of the $20 million settlement.
and maybe when he reports, he can kind of give us an idea of where we are on that.
Okay.
Mr. Busser?
Yeah, and Callie, is that $2 million reserve, is that split between the other tribes, or is it just Cherokee?
Now that's out of just ours, just out of our settlement. Our total settlement was $20 million. That was to cover attorney fees. And then because there was still litigation surrounding the UKB, the DOI put a $2 million restriction on our settlement, which is still sitting out there.
So just our portion of the river. Okay, I understand. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving into the Attorney General's budget. So you can tell by the budget that there's approximately $1.3 million of the 5 of 2008 that's projected to be unexpended. A significant amount of that's related to the 2008 Constitutional Defense Fund, or what's been renamed as Advocacy Initiative. Also contributing to that 1.3 underutilization is the litigation budget of $325,000, as well as $300,000 in the Attorney General's operating budget. The ramp up of actual expended dollars here is all of that is basically related to that same fund, going from 1.7 to 3.7 from 06 to 08. I think we're all aware of what that represents. The Attorney General's funding source, you can see, predominantly is the general fund. They do have some funding coming in from the indirect cost pool, as where they're servicing programs such as Indian child welfare cases, things like that. But the lion's share is, of course, as would be expected, the tribal dollars. Salaries and benefits, you can see the relatively flat on existing positions. The vacant positions took a ramp up in this 09 budget related to 5 positions. And the new positions you can see is is bringing into this budget a $250,000 cost. And that's 7 positions that are associated with that. And you'll see that in this next chart. The Attorney General's budget itself, which is basically just one department within this group, has a $181,000 decrease compared to the 08 budget, and a $2.4 million increase over 07. Again, it includes $2.6 million in this budget of 09 for the Advocacy Initiative, formerly titled Constitutional Defense Fund. The budget is significantly contributing to both variances, along with another significant increase of over $450,000 in personnel costs over the 07 level. The department includes both the Attorney General and Justice Departments and is requesting funding, which includes 5 vacant positions and 7 new positions. The staffing increase is resulting in significant increases on both Gen Fund and IDC, since they're staffing related. So I would expect a significant amount of this increased personnel to be servicing those programs as well, such as ICW.
Mr. Foskey?
Yes, I guess this question's for Callie, but first to Doug. Does this the Advocacy Initiative, does it reflect a decrease from what we were spending on the Constitutional Defense Fund from the previous year?
Okay, let me give you the numbers for that particular budget. 2007, 1.2. 2008, 3.2. 2009, 2.6.
And does this, there was some discussion about taking care of much of this in-house in terms of litigation. Does that decrease reflect that we're absorbing some of that work in-house?
That's the anticipation for 2009. Diane could not be here today, but she did send me some information. She wanted to let the council know that she was sworn in, I think, Monday. So she is authorized to practice in D.C. now. And in addition, we are getting some local, as in Oklahoma attorneys, to help on these cases. rather than the law firm out of DC, which is a lot less expensive. So we are anticipating a reduction in that budget.
I guess what I'd like to see is, probably from the Attorney General, is some analysis of how they arrived at the reduction. In other words, I mean, did they crunched the numbers and decided they were going to be able to absorb a certain amount of the work in-house, so they needed a lower budget. I guess I anticipated there might be an even lower budget based on discussions in the past fiscal year about how much money we were spending on attorneys and how much money we expected to spend down the road and how much money we would still have to spend on lobbyists, which I think this fund also includes that fund. And that obviously, well, I say obviously, I assume that's still going to be a third-party expenditure. We're going to spend this on third parties for.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess I'd like to see a bit more on that.
A little more detail. I think we can probably prepare you a report to show what we've spent in '08 by the various categories and then what the anticipated cost will be for '09.
Mr. Henry.
Kelly or anyone else, I know I probably told this, but I forgot. What are the difference between the advocacy initiative budget, which I know is the constitutional defense, and the litigation budget of the $500,000?
The litigation budget has been an existing budget for several years. That was a budget that was just established through the AG's office to defend the nation in various causes of action that are brought against us. I believe most of that budget goes to hire outside attorneys. Is that correct? Okay.
Ms. Jordan.
Kelly, this is probably more Diane's question, but I'm just going to put it forth. I mean, we won the lawsuit. Cherokee Nation cannot be sued, be made party as Cherokee Nation. We know the individual officials can be made parties and be sued, but they carry errors and omissions insurance, that's exactly why all of us have errors and omissions insurance. So if we're sued in our capacities here, then they provide an attorney to represent us. So my question is, why do we continue to need $2.5 million for a lawsuit that we won?
And you're right, that is a question that Diane would need to answer. My limited knowledge is, yes, we won that round, but it's my understanding that there can be appeals and that will probably go on. Sonia, do you have any additions? Okay. I can ask Diane to prepare a report on that.
When will she be available during the budget process? I would ask that we delay any further discussion on the Attorney General's budget until Ms. Hammonds could be here to maybe entertain some of our questions regarding this line item.
Second. That's the motion.
Okay.
Yes, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. If I'm not mistaken, the budget timeline may have provided for this particular budget to come into the process long before that appellate court decision came down.
That's true.
Which leads me to think we might want to do or consider a modification in this part. Since this is precisely what I want to look at in the budget is our tribal dollars. I mean, these are the most important, I don't want to say they're the most important dollars, but they're the dollars that make a difference to our services. And every dollar that we put into a lawyer is a dollar less that we put into eyeglasses and teeth and health and housing and education.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay. Moving into the Education Service Division. Large service division, be the largest service division we've talked about up to this point. You'll notice the budget has taken a slight reduction of approximately $3 million compared to the '08 budget. There are some one-time funding that occurred late in '07 that was largely utilized in '08 related to some scholarship programs. The $19 million that is projected to be unexpended in 2008, $6 million of that is related to Sequoia High School. $3 million in scholarships. $2 million of that is a reserve, motor fuel tax reserve, and $2.5 million in the culture department. Now, the reason I bring that up is the $14 million that's projected to be unexpended was unexpended in '07. These are audited numbers now in '07 and '06. $7.5 million of that 14 was also related to Sequoia High School. Almost $4 million of the 9 in '06 was Sequoia High School. Now there's further explanations that will warrant why some of Sequoia's budgets are being significantly underutilized. But the reason I bring it up is there are some operational budgets that are significantly being underutilized at the high school, but yet there are continued requests for tribal discretionary dollars. So I think we need to understand what is some of these programs within the education division, what are they actually, how are they impacting the discretionary fund? The projection in '08 that is projecting only $26 million to be utilized is somewhat distorted due to the fact of the seasonality of the scholarship payments. The $26 million for the Cherokee Nation Higher Education Scholarship Program, when you project out actuals and only 1 out of 2 scholarship checks are being considered, then obviously I'm underestimating this based on the projection because I don't have that other semester check coming into play yet that is just occurred just very recently. And 5.7 million of that is what would be affected in that decrease on the scholarships. Let's look at the funding sources for the education services. You'll see the federal funds are predominantly what's driving that division. Motor fuels tax is heavy into the scholarship program. General fund is providing significant amount of funding in the departments such as culture. The executive director has some tribal funds in it. Higher education is utilizing some gen fund. Sequoia High School is requesting about $600,000 more of gen fund. So it's these general dollars are being scattered throughout this division.
Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, Kelly, given the last slide where there's $5 or $6 million every year not being expended, is there something that makes you believe that shouldn't be reduced?
Are you referring to the overall slide or
The one back that was just gen fund?
Go back. Okay, that, as I understand it, is the total budget.
It is.
A large chunk of that is related to Sequoia High School. Part of it's operational dollars, but they also have some construction dollars that they were awarded, I believe, in '06. So that would be contributing a part of that. I know on the discretionary dollars, we have put quite a bit of money towards the immersion classrooms. And that's one of those hard to fill positions as the immersion instructors. So we could run a detailed report on the general fund, but
If you look at page 5 in your book, behind the charts, you'll see a detail. It starts at the bottom of that page and picks up on the next page, and it'll show you where those numbers that I gave you a while ago for their underutilization, what particular programs they're in. As Callie said, they're significant in '07 was the construction dollars. That was the only year that was affected. But when you look at facilities, there is anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million underutilized every year in their facilities budget. And the balance would be scattered out through, a lot of different programs. We're projecting out of '08, $3.2 million of what is in a budget called carryover. So I don't know what type of expenses. I think the 2008 number you're talking about, Bill John, related to Sequoia is, I think, probably half of that number that was thrown out is in this budget called Sequoia High School Education Carryover. So if there's strings attached to it, it's not identifiable in the accounting unit title. Are you aware of what that, if there, what's the purpose of that budget as far as what it's?
That is just a separate budget they prepare to bring forward the carryover, and it's used for all of their operations.
And that was my point in bringing up the Sequoia continued request for gen fund dollars year after year after year when they're carrying over these operational dollars that is $4.5 million and projected to spend only 1.2 of that this current year. I'm unclear why, the justification for discretionary dollars when they have that much. That was the only purpose for making that point in the presentation. Because it looks like we're spending $12 first. Continue, Mr. Chairman. Okay. We've already talked about that slide on the funding sources. We're not just talking about Sequoia High School now. This is the entire Education Service Division, okay? So these charts are not program specific. I may comment on a program, but they're total division. See, the existing positions are moving up closer to the budget number of 08, which is a good thing. It shows that the Education Service is filling a lot of the positions in 08 and identifying, they have filled them and they're identifying them as being filled in the 09 budget. There's the $790,000 of increase of vacant positions related to 29 positions. And those 29, which we'll see on this next slide, 14 of those are in the culture division related to the Cherokee Nation Historical Society. And some of those 29, I will point out, are, I think some of those are of a part-time nature. 11 of that 29 are in the Head Start program. That's showing to be vacant positions. And then 8 new positions being requested. Now to go in by program, we'll start with the childhood development. That program is requesting only a 2% increase, very flat, and a 1% decrease over the 07 actuals. The slight increase compared to previous budget, primarily due to the Head Start program's DHS funding, as well as the motor fuel tax funding per your recent legislation. The culture program is a relatively flat budget to budget, 0% change, but a 64% increase over 07's actuals, or $2.5 million. Obviously a significant increase over anticipating operating level over where we were last fiscal year. It has 2 discretionary funding initiatives in it, new ones, experiential learning in the amount of $100,000, as well as the Cherokee translators for another $50,000. We discussed those yesterday. These are slightly offset by minor decreases in the Cultural Center and Historical Society's budgets. This program's current year spending is projecting a significant underutilization of its current year budget, $3.5 million in spending on a $5.7 million discretionary funding level, and very likely could have between $1.5 and $2 million of unexpended discretionary funds by the end of this month. $1.4 million of the $2.4 million increase over 07, approximately 60-70%, is due to the Cherokee Immersion Project, significant increase that occurred during the 08 budget cycle. You may recall that this last year, upping the level of operating of that program. The Executive Director of Education, the next department, it has various things contained in it, such as reserves and capital expenditures. So when you remove the effect of those unique items, it's budgeting actually a $93,000 decrease compared to 08's budget, and which is not very significant. However, compared to 2007's actuals, it's a $1.7 million increase. These increases are due to new and expanded programs during 08 that I mentioned, such as the Cherokee Nation Art Institute, requesting $765,000 compared to 07 that spent $43,000. The public school outreach requesting $500,000 these are Gen Fund dollars, compared to 07 spending of $118. And also the Education Data and Development Initiative requesting $395,000, which was all new to the 08 cycle. So those are the detailed explanations of the $1.7 million increase. The Higher Education Department has a 1.8 or...
Mr. Buzzer.
Yeah, Doug, I had a question. I just thought I saw Dr. Morgan come in. I'm not sure how I'll ask this question, but I'll just put it down for Dr. Morgan. I just heard the report that we're putting a lot of dollars in Sequoia that aren't getting spent. And I know we got other high schools out in our other districts. And my question is, the $500,000 for outreach programs, I'm going to give you an example here, maybe you can help me with it. Is that the J school system, we don't have an Indian counselor up there. Is there any way that we could talk to the superintendent, we got a new superintendent, by the way, to see if we could get more one-on-one relationship with our Indian kids in those systems up there? Whether they want it or not, I don't know. I haven't visited with it yet. But is there some dollars set aside for that if we could actually get something going up there, say, as a match for a counselor strictly for our Native American kids in the J school systems or other schools throughout the 14 county jurisdictions? That's what I'm interested in. I'm all for Sequoia High School. I think it's a great school. But we have Indian kids in our other school districts that I think is underserved. And if we're putting $5 million up there that we're not using, then I'd like to see some of that spread around to our other schools within the 14 county jurisdiction. I just don't feel like that. I know you do a good job on public relations with schools, but I'd like to see somebody within those school systems that actually takes care of that for us and be more, I think they could be more effective if they're right there at the school. So, I don't know, I'd like to hear your comments on that, and maybe you're doing some things already to cover that.
First of all, it's a topic in which I have a great deal of interest. Of course, the funds at Sequoia that we're talking about, the carryover fund situation, would be a different pot of money. But within the outreach budget, there certainly would be provisions. And I would be all for that as long as the school puts something into it too. Yeah. I think it'd be far more effective if the school came forward with, okay, half salary, or let's just use that as an example, we provide half salary, materials, contact, coordination, and so forth. I think we would see a vast increase in participation in education outreach programs from a Cherokee Nation. I think an extra added value would be we would not have this create the wheel every year on scholarships if we had that type person in the high schools. A few of the high schools have designated a person, but there's a whole lot of difference between designating a person to pay a little more attention to Indian students than that being that person's bread and butter. So your comments are well taken and are right on target, and yes, we can do that.
Okay, and I really thought that maybe the $500,000 outreach could be used for some of that. You just said it could be.
Yes, it could.
Thank you.
Mr. Austin.
Dr. Morgan, is listening to our elders, is that continuing?
Listening to our elders was a program that was an SBC program, which was not continued through the internal review process. I have asked that that program be revisited because it embodies so many of the strategic objectives that we have not only within the Department of Education but within the nation as a whole. Now, there is a program listed in the budget that has a similar title, but that's a different project than the one we operated at in the Greasy community under the title Listening to Our Elders.
Was the program a success in the Greasy community?
Extremely so.
The budget that you had You didn't expend much of it, but 20,000 was enough to be successful in, or not 20,000, but your budget last year was enough to be, the budget you used was enough to be successful in Greasy.
Yes.
Was it the first year, just the natural startup time it took to get to that point? If you had more time, you could spread this to other communities?
Well, that is designed within that program to be at Greasy as a focal point for the budget year that we're just ending. And then with a smaller amount of money to maintain the activities at Greasy, and then move the project to either Bell, Kenwood, or Marble City.
So is the project,
So that we could go from community to community.
but is that over now in terms of this budget proposal?
As far as this budget is concerned, it's over.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to put this in form of the motion, but we've just heard about unexpended gen fund at Sequoia High School, which I fully support Sequoia High School, and we've heard about the termination of what I thought would be a great program, and the director's saying it's a great program. So I think, I'll give it some more thought. I think we ought to seriously consider continuing that program. It's puzzling to me as to why it was terminated in this budget proposal. And I don't know if Dr. Morton, if you have any insight to share on that, or if Callie, you have any insight, but I would like to hear the other side of it as to why it was terminated.
I think there were perhaps some misunderstanding concerning the overall goals of the it was actually an incubation program, and so often incubation programs are not really, they do not fare well when they're set up beside other programs that have specific product objectives. This program had, well, I'll probably tell you more time than you want here, but the whole thrust of the program was an idea of mine, and oftentimes I don't explain my ideas quite that well. I think about them and think, yeah, that'll work, and too often I do not go back and 1, 2, 3, 4 them. We do not at the present time have any idea how many speakers there are in the Cherokee Nation, how many Cherokee language speakers there are. We have no idea whatsoever. There was a study conducted in '68 and '69 by a anthropologist / linguist by the name of Warhoftig, who studied in various communities within the Cherokee Nation and came up with the number of speakers in those communities. The Warhoftig study is cited frequently as how many speakers there were then, which showed, in fact, that there were more speakers in 1969 than there was in 1932, which makes the study suspect immediately. The Cherokee Nation attempted to come up with a number of speakers in order to apply for a federal grant about 7 or 8 years ago. That was done by various methods, none of which were coordinated. It would be prohibitive, of course, to start now and go to each household. That would be about as effective as the last census. Back door was slammed about time front door opened. And we wouldn't get adequate data. So I had this idea that if we go into communities, in most of your communities, your districts that contain traditional Cherokee settlements, there are no more than 7 families in those districts by the time you count in-laws. About 7 major basic families. If you identify the leaders in each one of those families, they can give you a more definitive study of how well someone speaks Cherokee. For instance, if we go to a Cherokee community and say, do you speak Cherokee? Unless they are really fluent, they're going to tell you no. If you ask, do you read and write? They think you may be going to give them something, say, okay, read and write that, so they're going to tell you no. But now, an older member of the family, an elder in the family, is going to know every member of that family's ability to not only converse orally, but to read and write. So that's the whole reason for the Greasy Project, to try to build in a family analysis by language. We could do the same in every other identifiable traditional community. Then that would leave us only a survey that we could do through more traditional measures, whether it be by mail out, whether it be by newspaper, whether it be by whatever. But the real information from the speakers is in the traditional communities, so that's the whole purpose of that.
What had the department requested within the internal review process as adequate funding for this fiscal year?
We had requested, Jennifer, $146,000, yeah.
$136,000.
$146,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I got one more question, Dr. Morrison, and I think it'll be a quick answer. On this $500,000 that you've got budgeted in there, I know we used to have a program, I think it's called STAR program, that would actually go into the school system, and kids were getting 10th, 11th, and 12th grade mostly, that needed that extra help, say after school, to get their credits up to where they could graduate. Is that somewhere in this budget, or could we use this outreach program to set up a program like that?
You know, that's a project that you requested information on some time ago, and we scoured and scoured.
Yeah.
We finally found it last week, in fact.
Okay.
It was not originally from Education Services, but we found that STAR program. It's a program that I think would be really a good program if we could team up with career services and put career orientation along with it. And so I'm going to talk to Diane Kelly and see if the two of us can't perhaps collude on that project.
Because I know there in Delaware County, we have a lot of kids that, they're probably never going to go to college, but, if we can get them through high school and maybe give them some type, what you just said in the career service field, that might work, because some of them are just not going to go to college there.
Yeah,
I'd still like to see them get their high school diploma, graduate, and actually get some type of credit to go into to make them work. So, I may want to visit with you after the budget hearing.
Because really, today, if either one of us wanted to hire an electrician, we could hire a school teacher a lot easier than we could an electrician, or we could hire almost anything easier than we could hire someone to do that. There's another project that ties right in with that we're trying on an experimental basis to try to cause students who may not have had any inkling that they would go to college. We're working with Oaks Mission in a very low budget project out of Tulsa Community College for satellite classes for which the students receive college credit in basic general ed requirements at Oaks. At the same time, they count those credits toward graduation from high school, and when they graduate, they'll have 9 hours already in college, so the chances of their going on to college are much greater if we do that through outreach.
Thank you.
Yeah, this might be for Doug. Doug?
Excuse me?
On their cultural program, on your narrative, you talk about 3.5 million, and what I'm getting at is it's about 40% of discretionary funding levels it's not being spent on the cultural program. And these are discretionary dollars.
Yep, if you look at page 4, I think it's 3 pages back from where you're at. Under the cultural program, you'll see which programs there in the 2008 column, budget versus projected. Immersion project, projecting 900,000 underspent. Talking about Gen Fund. Comprehensive Culture Center, projecting 335,000 below budget. Historical Society, projecting 600,000 below budget.
That clarifies you?
Yes.
a large piece of that historical society would be related to anticipated revenue from the Heritage Center, which will not materialize this year, so the actual under expenditure may be a couple of $100,000.
And to explain that a little further, shows 1.6 million for the 2008 budget for the Cherokee Heritage Center, but only 1.2 million was to come from the nation. And then once expended, anything over the 1.2 million that they spent through the Cherokee Nation was to be reimbursed. So it showed a reimbursement from the Heritage Center of $402,000 in the budget. But they have intentionally tried to keep it below the 1.2 million.
So another way to rephrase that would be a significant amount of their underutilization was their under-earning of revenue. It was the revenue they were generating is what they weren't spending because they weren't generating it.
They weren't spending it through the Cherokee Nation. They were keeping the amount that was spent.
Okay, so we're actually
$2 million.
Then we've got a different application of the accounting booking where we're not recording the revenue and then flowing their expenses through. They're booking their own revenue and paying their own expenses.
Right.
Okay, so we've got an actual application of accounting that's slightly different than what the budgets are representing.
Right.
Okay.
Because it should, all the way through, actually 1.2 million would be more representative.
Okay.
That's the
Explain.
budget for the Heritage Center. It would just show a flat amount all the way through, which is what it'd be. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Mr.
Yeah,
Baker.
I was just realizing how much money was still sitting there not used, and I was curious about why we're letting so many discretionary dollars sit there unused. Why don't we cut some of them back and use them for something else? And I'm not talking about the Cherokee Historical, but I'm just talking about these other ones because I'm very much for the Heritage Center. But I'm just looking at this whole culture budget that's directed me to on page 4.
Oh, are you?
I'm kidding.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
Dr. Horton, come forward, please. I've got a question for you. I've had some parents that have young ones that they are extremely pleased with the immersion. But they have younger children, and they're really telling me that if we would do the early Head Start immersion and give those kids another year or two of immersion, that they feel it would be much, much better. And Head Start, and I sit on that board, so I'm pretty familiar with it. It's the only program the Cherokee Nation has that's like a $10 million program, that $2 million of it has to come from us, but it doesn't. The $2 million, it comes from the schools, and it comes from in-kind and volunteer hours and everything like that. Where you go to the Chicks and the Chops, they physically pay the 20% match, and we give them zero. We give them a supplement of $100,000 or $125,000 a time or two. But if we would belly up the bar with $130,000 for a teacher and two, they could use that as in-kind and start an early immersion. And I think it's something that the parents are craving, and I'm going to float. What do you think about it?
I think it's an excellent idea. Earlier you get the child, the better off you are. The problems that would be associated with that would be, we would then come under the total child care regulations. We would have to have a different facility to house the project. See, we moved, when we were in the child care facility, the middle building, you see, we were hampered by so many regulations that we would not be under public school regulations or under school regulations. So by moving into the old casino building, we were able to, of course, handle more students and so forth. So we do not have access to facilities now that would accommodate that unless we turn some of our early childhood centers through Head Start into immersion.
I just want,
If that would be a possibility, facility-wise, then program-wise, I see no problem with it whatsoever.
I think something we need.
In other words, simple question, could we do it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna put a motion that we take $128,000 for an early immersion Head Start program.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hoskins?
Mr. Baker, specifically where are we taking the funds from? Just so, because just for my clarity.
For your clarity, I assume we'll balance this thing at the end, but I'm guessing that the unreserved, Callie, what you call what was left?
I'll have to look and remember. Unappropriated reserve.
Yeah, unappropriated reserve, we're just going to appropriate $128,000 of it.
Could I just ask a question or make a comment? I understand the need to do the earlier childhood, but I was just wondering if this is something Dr. Morton and his staff could work on and plan with the existing budget, or if we needed to add additional budget authority to the immersion projects.
Mr.
Yes.
I mean, one reason I want to actually add money is they are struggling up there so badly trying to get their 20% match. And so if we actually put it in, I mean, we're the only tribe that doesn't fund their Head Start. And I mean, maybe that's a discussion for another time. But we really need to think about helping with that match, because, I mean, there's years that we do not even get to utilize the federal dollars because we don't meet our match. And it's a real struggle. And I mean, the public schools are a big help, because when we have them and they put their space cost in, then we get that, and every time a parent shows up to the meeting, they get, so many dollars, for that. But it's one of the best programs that we've got, and putting $128,000 into it to help with that match in, it is just a drop in the bucket. So I think my motion stands.
We'll discuss it. I'll discuss it with Dr. Morton in terms of rearranging some dollars.
I just wanted to make a comment, Dr. Morton. I think we've had this conversation. I'm actually in favor of a lot of things on immersion. I think that I'm one of these, I hear the clock ticking on this, we're losing speakers. And one of the things I did want to point out, we've had this conversation. I've got people up in my district in Washington County that are just starving for this. And I think your comment is the plan was come down where most of the speakers are, get this off the ground. And all I'm saying is I respect that opinion, but just here in the next few years, just when it's time to expand to the northern part of the nation, we've got people waiting, so I appreciate y'all. I'll give you the time to do what you need, but I'm in favor of this actually. Very good.
Appreciate that.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yes, Mr. Hoskins.
Chairman, I would like to see Dr. Morton have the opportunity to continue to progress on this, listening to our elders project, and I don't know, Doug can give me guidance if this is an appropriate way to approach it, but it seems to me you could reduce every cultural budget by 2%. And it doesn't seem to put them in harm's way given what they expended last year, and you could approach what Dr. Morton requested for that program. I think we need to keep it going and give it another year to see how it goes. I'd like to see it progress up north, but I understand it needs to incubate in the central part of the Cherokee Nation. So as I run the numbers, if you reduce the budget for culture by 2%, you get about $126,000, which would get Dr. Morton where he needs to go. And Doug, what I'm talking about is we've got $6 million budgeted in this proposal for culture. And, I mean, there's probably a lot of ways to do it. Bill John's approach on the Head Start would be acceptable to me too, but just looking at that department, if everyone takes a bit of a cut and save that program.
One comment would be, you're talking about such a small percentage of the total cultural budget that if the culture budget was maximizing their funding each year, okay, if that was the case, then I think there would warrant additional funding being put in to accommodate that activity. But when the cultural budget is underutilizing its budget to the numbers that we're looking at here, it could, I mean, it would be.
I'm not asking to add money to the culture budget.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm asking to reduce every line item that we see here in culture by 2%, shift that money. So don't add a dime to what the administration wants. Shift money over to, and I don't know of an equitable way to do it other than across the board.
One alternative way of thinking would be allow the program to accomplish the purpose of listening to the elders within their current budget.
I don't see a current budget for listening to the elders.
But it is a cultural resource activity.
I just heard from Dr. Morton that it's terminated because of the lack of funds, unless I misunderstood.
Well, the same funds are discretionary funds that are contributing to the cultural budget are going underutilized to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, then I'm unclear how a tribal discretionary listening to your elder initiative would have to terminate due to lack of funding. If one pocket spends 50% of its money, how can the other pocket say it can't operate when it's all coming out of the same source of funds?
If the program can continue, that's fine. I just heard it couldn't.
Mr. Henry.
Would one option be there is a line item of Cherokee Language Center, $242,962. Last year they spent $195,000 of that money. If we would direct listening to your listening to our elders under that and or the experimental learning budget, which is a new budget of $100,000, just mandate that program come under one of those two line items. Would that?
I think that's what
that would satisfy me in as much as it's the funding level that Dr. Morton originally sought. Assuming that can be accomplished, then I would amend my motion to read as you just said.
It wouldn't quite do that. I mean, it was originally 2008 was requested $137,000, but they only expended $20,000 of that. But it looks like there would be some enough amount of unexpended monies in the Cherokee Language Center, plus coupled with some money from the experimental learning, which both would, I think this would fall under those topics under the line items.
And my only point, Mr. Hoskin, was not at all trying to tell the body what to do at all, but I would just advise against bringing carryover or unused monies within the same department of tribal dollars, bringing carryover, putting it on top of budgets that have a history of underspending their tribal dollars to begin with. One way would be reduce a budget that historically hasn't been spending their money and use redirect or deobligate and obligate it for a different purpose.
And I thought that was what I was doing, was reducing where they're spending specifically within culture. That would yield enough money to be put into the Listening to Our Elders program. That's what I thought I was doing.
And 14 budgets are in culture. There's 14 different budgets. Some of them are tribal and some of them are federal. And to take a 2% carte blanche across the board on all of those, would require 14 budget amendments. Where,
I'm going to second his motion to cut the tribally funded programs each enough to accommodate listening to your elders. That's a second.
And you accept?
I accept.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Watts?
But that's not what I'm hearing if I read through all this. There's either a choice that this is a program we want to continue, because there's money that we don't have to cut other programs to find. Or, I mean, why didn't we, what happened last year? Was it not successful? Is that why we're not continuing it? What was the rationale through Strategic Budget Committee and stuff?
I think part of the rationale here was that it was not being utilized, as Dr. Morton stated earlier. It was in an incubation process, and when you're taking a lot of different proposals and you're trying to make decisions between what's going to have the greatest impact, this budget did not appear to be being utilized. During this discussion, I was just visiting with Dr. Morton, and within the existing culture budgets, between the Cultural Resource Center and the immersion programs, he feels there is more than sufficient dollars in the proposed budgets to continue this program. The question becomes, and this is where sometimes we get down into the minutia, do we need a separate accounting unit for listening to our elders, or is that just an initiative of the Cultural Resource Center? I don't have an issue reprogramming from a couple of these other accounting units to show it as a separate line, but I think what I'm hearing from this body is you would like to see that program continue, and obviously Dr. Morton is in favor of continuing that. So at the end of the day, I think there is sufficient money within this culture budget to fund that activity.
Mr. Chairman, if that is the case, I apologize.
I just have a follow-up question. So so the motion's acceptable?
Well, what I'm saying is there is sufficient funding within the culture budget to continue this activity.
Without taking the cut?
With the
Reprogramming some of the cultural budget over to listen to the elders.
So the motion's acceptable? That's not, it's a yes or no. So the motion is not. I mean, we can do money differently. We can still have everything.
Okay, I'll try to make this.
Mr. Roscoe?
Yeah, as I hear you, there is no need for this motion.
That's what it looks like.
Dr. Morton is going to be able to continue this program without this separate budgeting unit, that's what they.
Exactly.
So, having heard that, I'll wait for Dr. Morton to comment, but I'm prepared to withdraw my motion.
Yes, that is correct. One thing that is confusing, under this laundry list under culture, some of those programs I simply serve as banker for those programs. For instance, I have nothing, the National Treasure Project, I'm the banker. Miss Cherokee activities, I have nothing to do with Miss Cherokee activities, I'm the banker. We have Jennifer has a good system. So we get to be banker on some of these projects. So I can't tap a lot of those projects because technically they're not mine. But I can go through the programs that I do have budget authority with and find enough money to carry that program on similar to the way it was last year.
Mr. Baker?
I would make a motion that this body ask that listen to your elders be continued, however they fund. That'd be a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a comment.
Yes.
One of our strategic initiatives is our language. I think our immersion programs hinge on listening to our elders, so certainly I'll support this.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, continue.
Figure out where I was at.
Page 4.
Culture. Oh, okay, we finished the culture, so we're going into the...
Ms. Fishing Hawks?
Are we still on the executive director, or we talked to her, and I'm not sure. What I want to ask about is
Yes.
the Cherokee National Art Institute. So I'm sure.
Yes, that is under the executive director. Do you have a question for Dr. Moore?
Well, I was curious about why they're asking for so much when they only spend 40%.
Which line?
We got stopped
The art,
right
Cherokee
here.
National
Cherokee
Art
Nation
Institute.
Arts.
Same deal.
You can,
Art Institute.
okay.
Yeah.
He can answer
That is within the executive director.
part of the view.
My neighbor told me.
Okay, yeah, because it occurred in the summer after these budgets. Okay.
When did the Art Institute occur?
This summer.
Okay, because these actuals are only through July 25th, and then projected out for 9 more weeks of the fiscal year. So if there were significant amount of expenditures that came in, even though they may have been occurred in July, but they came in after 7/25, they won't be included in the projected numbers.
Right.
Don't know what that'd be, but I wouldn't have any idea what the new projected number would be. But it does stick out on the report, obviously, when the budget's $765,000 and it's projected to spend $215. You know, there's obviously an explanation
Okay.
there, one way or
But
the other.
she's satisfied.
Okay. Moving on off the executive director into the higher education department. Compared to 08 budget, it has a $1.8 million decrease, or 24%. It's due to the program not budgeting any anticipated carryover from 08 into 09. Program spending history for the current 08 year indicates the scholarship fund, both Gen Fund and motor fuel, could very well end the year with upwards to $2 million in unexpended funds. I anticipate both the Cherokee Scholarship Program motor fuel tax and the Pale Scholarship subsidy on the Gen Fund carrying close to $1 million unexpended balance each. I've already taken into consideration that the second semester payment are not in these projected numbers. So I did go ahead and consider those before coming up with those numbers. Now, the $1.8 million increase over 07 actuals, or 47%, related to new and expanded programs that occurred, as you recall, in 08, all of which are funded by discretionary funds. The Pale Scholarship Program, which is $883,000 over the 07 actual level. Remember when the body decided to up the Pale amount? The Directed Studies Program accounts for $470,000. That was new in 08. And the Youth Athletic Leadership, $100,000. The next department is the Johnson O'Malley Program. Basically no change to the 08 budget, and a slight 6% increase, or $140,000 over 07 spending. And that's funded by the Self-Governance Compact. Not much change there. The Learn and Serve Program of Education has a 15% decrease, or $173,000, but yet a $250,000 increase, or 33%, over the 07. Both these variances are related to the Serve America program, which is a federal funded program. The decrease compared to the 08 budget is due to the removal of the Gadugi component of that grant in 08, and the increase over 07 level is primarily contingent upon the program being able to meet its in-kind requirement of over $400,000. The Sequoia High School,
Ms. Christie Hall.
I got a question about higher education.
okay, yeah.
Look on page 5. I'm looking at Gen Fund numbers. Higher education Pell scholarships, they set 19% of the budget.
Well, there's another, there's going to be another check run, that won't be included. I don't believe they got that second check run out by 7/45, did you? Yeah, that's more late August, isn't it? Yeah. So you basically doubled the 325 that was expended. If everything remains the same in the second semester as it did in the spring semester, then you could essentially double the 325. So it would be about 600 compared to the 1.6. Still a significant underutilization, but not to the extent that it's being portrayed because of the seasonal payments.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm wondering about. I know we give them 1,000. Talk to me about raising it to 1,500 and putting the 500 on the backside, where they have to finish the semester with a certain grade point average. Somebody for education?
We don't qualify to comment on that. I mean, the dollar impact or the programmatic impact of that?
Well, everything that will impact.
Well, it would be a 50% increase in the dollar requirement of the budget. So the higher education 2.4 and the 1.4 Pell, if you're going to do that, those two budgets right there would need to be combined, and which would be almost $4 million. There would be a $2 million funding requirement to do that, approximately. Okay, that's the financial side of it. I can't talk to the programmatic side.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
I was just going to point out that the old cycle's gone, so the people that are getting their checks in August is the new year cycle. So it could even be more if there's more kids that applied and got approved in January, because the August is the front side of the year and not the back side. So it's kind of really confusing because the money's split for the year, but they make the first of one year and then the last of that year, and then it rolls around again. So it's not just exactly cut and dried the second half. It's actually the first round of the next year.
Ms. Cummings?
I had a question about the directed studies program, which perhaps Dr. Morton could address, about directed studies. And it's showing only a 10% expenditure, and I presume that's going to go up significantly when the checks begin to actually be...
Yeah, see, the directed studies did not become operational, active, until just prior to and after the summer session started. So we only have, Jennifer, about 5 students in, we have 6. We only have 6 students in that program. So the interest level in the program has boomed, though. And we will have another opening date on November the 9th to consider persons for spring semester. And then we'll have an opening date next spring to consider persons that will be entering summer or fall of 10. So to say, do we have a surplus in this account, you really can't label it a surplus. We'll probably have to cap it out.
Okay, that was really what I was wondering, is if you had any idea how, because I knew it was going to be more, if you had any idea how close it was going to come, because you've only got approximately half as much for next year, right? And how is that going to impact you?
And see, we don't have the base data. The only thing we have is what we have already awarded this year. And
you're anticipating that, in fact, you're going to award most of this.
We will run out of. Chances are we may run out of money in directed studies before next budget cycle, and may have to do some internal adjustments if, in fact, there are funds available in internal adjustments. Yeah. So to say that there would be a surplus in higher education, there's a surplus today, and probably will be a surplus when we write the final check for this fall semester, which we haven't completed yet. So I would be reluctant to say that, we'll have some money left over in higher ed.
Do you think this amount for next year will mean a reduction from what is, you're saying it's generating a great deal of interest this year, you're probably going to cap out. Will the amount next year signify a reduction and a rejection of people next year from what it is this year?
That is a possibility. I'd anticipate that that there will be an increased number of applications in healthcare fields, tremendously, because of what is happening within the nation, our nation, in healthcare extension.
Ms. Watts?
Thank you. Nursing's not under directed studies, is it?
Nursing is in directed studies if it's at the bachelor's level or master's level.
And we're only funding 6 right now,
Yeah.
including other, not just nursing.
Then the RN program is not included in directed studies. It's included in higher ed.
Which would be the program like at RSU or Bacone and
Yes.
those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's why, because that's where I'm concerned is I'm still not clear what the actual directed studies, I know you sent it to us, but it just didn't stick, what those programs are that are included in directed studies. But I guess my focus is, the reason why I keep asking the question about nursing is I don't think we can fund enough of those people, especially when we look at the vacancies in health, whether it's nurses or medical folks and stuff, and that's where I'm concerned about. But you'd answered those questions.
I anticipate that the greatest run on the higher ed portion of the program will be cooperative programs between higher ed and career services for med tech areas, allied health areas, and RN programs. For the directed studies program, I can see that attracting physicians, dentists, practically all areas of health-related occupations above the level of tech level. So the directed studies is a program that the story is yet to be written on it. We don't know what the interest is out there, or what the demand will be out there.
Ms. Jordan?
Next year, I'll be in a much better position to tell you what I think would be an estimate. But right now, we're flying in the dark on that because of only having with the 6 we have now, we're not going to have a tremendous surplus.
Ms. Jordan?
Dr. Morton, I'm real intrigued by exploring this idea that was suggested earlier, that we set a grade point, that if they achieve that grade point, that we would fund a greater portion on the backside of these scholarships. I think if we can offer an incentive to entice them to raise those grade points, that only helps everyone in education. And I'm looking over these figures. It appears that there's enough play there with the higher education Pell scholarships and then just the regular higher education scholarships that we could offer that incentive in some form as possibly a test. When we say we're going to have to double it, that's not going to occur. Everybody overnight is not going to have the ability to raise their grades to a level that will achieve, let's say, the bonus. I would like to see us put this in some form of a trial study to see if we could raise those grade points. Right now, we're giving them the money at the front, covering their educational needs, but the only thing they have to do is just stay inside the door. This would create an opportunity for them to exceed that expectation and reward them in some small amount. And it's certainly not a program that we have to keep in place forever, but we could try it for a year or two and see if it actually does raise our grade point levels which will increase their ability to receive other scholarships from other organizations, lessening the burden possibly on us in the future, especially if they move to the graduate level. I would ask you all as a body to consider investing in our children to some extent, and I would suggest possibly not going to the $500, but let's go to $250. Let's offer them a $250 incentive on the back side that if you achieve a grade level to be set through Dr. Morton's office, we will reward you for that extra hard work that you did. Not taking away from all the children, but some children will rise to that expectation. Some young people will rise to that extra expectation that we have for them. And increasing that grade point, I see, only helps all of our educational endeavors, and certainly might help them achieve other funding from other sources. So I would put that in the form of a motion that for a year we try on the back side to reward them. I would ask Dr. Morton to consider setting up such a program, and I think it can be funded within the existing levels that we have now. And I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Because I had several people down for discussion beforehand. Pardon?
I understand.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Cobb.
I completely concur with your assessment. I think an example of this is I think most people are unaware, and some people are actually shocked to realize that the United States Olympic Committee pays U.S. Olympic athletes for medals. They get $25,000 for a gold medal, $15,000 for a silver, and I think $7,500 for bronze, which I have some issues with, but that's the fact. So there are incentive programs out there, but I'm not opposed to this, but I am all about plans, and I think that we probably need to sit down and come up with a plan with the education department to set something up. I do agree on the back side as an incentive. I would be more than happy to chair that committee, and I would pray that Dr. Coates would be on that committee with me. But I'm not opposed to this, but I want to do it correctly. So I would hope that maybe you would consider setting up a committee. I'd be more than happy to chair that if you need to be, instead of doing this right now. I don't want to piecemeal this. I think an incentive plan is something we need to definitely sit down and go through.
Well, I'm assuming that if we pass this, that then will Dr. Morton and everyone that's interested would sit down and put policies and procedures in place to
I just don't want a dollar amount right now.
Well, it really doesn't have a dollar amount. It would just set into play that we would offer a $250 incentive with him to develop the policies and the procedures to go with it. And I would assume he would certainly allow us the courtesy of input through Dr. Cobb's suggestion.
Excuse me, Mr. Henry.
One thing that I would just state for the council as a whole is that it's very difficult to create legislation through the budgetary process. What we're here for to do is say these are the line items in which you want these individuals to expend money, and we're gonna give them the money, they're going to administrate the money. Okay. Now, on something as an example of that council person Jordan just stated, you can make sure that you appropriate enough money to do what you're doing. Okay. Now, you can ask them to do what you just asked, like you've just done, and they can take that consideration, and maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. My bet is that they would. But let's say you want something very specific done, just exactly as you said. The way that it would happen in the legislative process is for us to write an act saying that you're going to do this by these guidelines. When the legislature passes an act, they have to follow it. Okay. So what I would recommend, it would be very difficult for us to say, because when we pass this budget, we're going to pass budget with line items, and then they're going to administrate it. But I think the way to achieve the way you wanted to do would be to write a specific legislative act setting out forth the parameters by which you're going to do it, and then they would follow it to a T.
Ms. Jordan?
Dr. Morton, if possible, how many children did we fund through this year with the higher ed Pell and the higher ed scholarship?
2,400.
2,400. And what does that translate into, say, if 1,000 of them were to achieve this? How much money is that? $250 times 1,000, is that 250,000?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want an act. I trust Dr. Morton. If we ask him to do this and we give you the money to do it, that he will do it. I don't think we need to legislate every portion of this. I think that we just need to say, okay, here's the money, Dr. Morton. Will you please do this? I trust Dr. Morton that he will do that. We don't need an act to tell him to do it. There's no person in this world that I can think of that's higher on education than Dr. Morton. I don't want to do it by act process. I don't want to do it by a resolution process. I want to do it as a line item in this budget, and then let Dr. Morton get with the most interested parties and accomplish it. Everything doesn't have to be, we tell you to do this. And that's what I consider an act or a resolution. I trust Dr. Morton. I say, I want to keep my motion. Let's give him the $250,000. I think you can redirect it within your own budget. And I would ask you to consider this opportunity here. I think it's fascinating. I think it's intriguing. I think it's something that I think we'll see an immediate return on. And I think that return will generate dollars from other sources to those kids later on. And I don't think we have to come up with an act or a resolution. We got the man right here, and if the man says he can do it, I trust him to do it. So I would ask that my motion be on the table for $250,000 to accomplish that.
Okay, the motion. Now, your initial motion did not include the $250,000.
Well, I think under Todd's advice there, we need an amount.
Yeah, if you're going to do a line item, you need to put an appropriate amount with it.
Okay. So that's been accepted. Mr. Baker?
Yeah, and I obviously am not going to vote against this. I think education is just way too important. But this might be the most we can do at this particular point in time. But folks, we've been at $1,000 for 5 years, and tuition has gone up 5 times. Gasoline has gone up many times. When we first started this program, $1,000 a semester, if they lived at home, they could pay their books and tuition and go to Northeastern State. It is not there anymore. Yeah, they could live at home and $1,000 would pay it. They can't even go to Connors for $1,000 a semester now. And so, I mean, we really need to soul search and try and find the $2 million to bump this up to 15 and then have an incentive on the backside of that. Because, yeah, it's nice if every one of our Cherokees has a 3 point or 3.5. But folks, there's a value to a 2-point college graduate in the real world. Because nobody ever asks you, were you a 4-point student or a 2-point student? They never ask you that. Once you've got your law degree, once you've got your teaching degree, once you've got whatever, you've got it, and then it's what you make of it at that point. And, you know, we've got kids that work full time and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive from Buy-In because they can't afford an apartment in Tahlequah. And they don't do as well. It just happens because of the stress of the job, the stress of the getting up early. And, Callie, you any idea where we'd find $2 million?
Not off the top of my head.
And that's not, she's got a motion on the floor, so I'm gonna be for it, but folks be thinking about this, because, you know, these really, I mean, I know it's a cliche and we use it that they are our future, but it is just so true. And, every time that we help one of those kids, not drop out because they can't afford the gasoline to get to school, or they don't drop out because they can't afford the last hour or whatever, we are making them a lifelong change in their lifestyle and their family's lifestyle, and whether they have insurance or they don't, and all that. So I might be, after lunch, be taking a poll and see if we can find a couple $1 million. So that being said, I'm going to support the incentive program.
Dr. Cobb.
I am all for education, but I'm not going to vote for this, and I'll tell you why. I want to see a plan, and this isn't the only line item in this budget I want to see a plan for. With all due respect, I mean, have both of you sat down with a calculator in the last 10 minutes and calculated out cost of living increases, gasoline prices? What if it's $25? What if it's $3,000? It may be more than you're saying. We need a plan, okay? We can't just keep throwing money at stuff and saying, here, go do this with this. Give me a plan. What if we have a committee set up and we've completely underfunded what you're talking about? I don't want to underfund it and come back in 6 months and say, well, we didn't put enough money into it. Do I trust Dr. Moore? Absolutely. But just give me a plan. We can't just throw money at something. We need to do it correctly and make sure these kids are funded correctly. I don't like just spur of the moment, throw money at it, here, go take care of this. Give me a plan. You cannot run a business, and I believe you cannot run a government by just throwing money at line items. Give me a plan. Tell me exactly that this is going to be funded correctly, and run the numbers. So I'm for this, but I'm not for it right now.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
Have I run the numbers? Well, I got a pretty good idea what Northeastern runs and what it costs.
Didn't ask you if you had a pretty good idea. I've asked you to run the numbers.
And what the numbers I did look at was the $2 million that might be possible. You know, if I thought we had enough surplus to give every kid in the Cherokee Nation that wanted to go to college the opportunity to pay full ride to OU, I'd do it. And I'd do it today. But I know we can't afford that. So maybe, but we can't afford Northeastern. And we can't afford Connors. And we can't afford some of the other schools. And if they're smart enough to go to OU and can get some scholarship on the side, but at least we can give them a basic state education, state subsidized education. So $2 million is not come totally out of reach when we're setting a $500 million budget. $2 million for our kids, and hopefully we won't turn any up on the way. And, you know, the Catuas are doing $1,500, but we've been at $1,000 for 5 years or 6. We've been at $1,000 for that long. And I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to sit there and see that gasoline has gone up or the tuition's gone up. And I'm just saying the $500 would just be the bare minimum to allow the kids to be able to pay for their college.
Mr. Henry?
Mr. Chairman, the debate on the floor is not germane to the motion that is put forward with his Miss Glory's kind of Gordon Jordan's incentive motion. And so there may be a motion made later by Mr. Baker that would be germane, but that's not germane as to the motion on the floor.
Okay. And I have 3 other people, or 4 other people. Yeah. Mr. Thornton.
Okay.
In regard to the motion that's on the floor.
The motion on the floor, I have to be for this, but I don't know about the incentive program being enough incentive. I'm kind of like Mr. Cobb over here. I'd like to see a study made. $250 for, you know, the people that are making 3.0 right now are going to make 3.0 next semester. People making 2.5, most of them's going to be making 2.5. I don't know if they'll have enough incentive to go on and get that behind the next semester. I agree with Bill John, and the thing that I'm looking at is that I know some students that's going down to Carlisle. They're paying over $800 for books, people, just for their books. We're just barely paying for people's books to go to school. And you talk about driving from Volume to Tahlequah, you know, $250 going last year, 3 tanks of gas. And it won't bring you up here a month. But anyway, I want to say that I will vote for this, but I want to echo Bill John's statements, because I remember last year I heard some of the same statements of Mr. Garvin over here, and he wanted to increase the funding for the all-around students, and that's something that I'm for also. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Garvin.
Incentive program is a good idea, but there's better ways to do it. I don't like the plan, and I'd prefer to go with the 1,500 and across the board. You got these kids working from daylight to dark and trying to go to school, and they're not going to come up with a 3 point or 4 or whatever, because they're probably getting a better education with a lower grade point, really, their efforts. I'm going to make a motion we table this and come up with 1,500 later on in this budget. So my motion is to table the motion on the floor.
Is there a second? Okay. Without a second, we'll proceed. Okay, Mr. Austin.
Well, I'll just try to limit my comments to the motion, but I think it's a bit of a false choice to say we have to decide between an incentive program or increasing it to 1,500. I do think I think we could probably do both. I think this is as Bill John mentioned, if we do increase overall across the board, an incentive program is still nice to have on the tail end. Education inflation is an identifiable figure. It is a figure that I'm confident Dr. Morton could produce today. But as to the motion, I obviously remain in full support of it.
Okay, Ms. Fraley.
Jordan, what were your stipulations on that motion?
That they develop a program, determine a grade point, and we would offer an incentive on the back end of $250 if they achieve that level. In other words, they get the $1,000 up front as they currently do, and then the $250 would be on the back side. I'm being really persuaded by a lot of argument that's being made here. If someone were to make a friendly amendment, I'd sure be looking at it.
I'd make a friendly amendment that we find the $2 million within the budget to bump our stipend from $1,000 to $1,500 a semester.
I second it.
Motion.
Well, it was in the form of
Friendly
a friendly amendment. Do you accept it?
And that would remove the incentive for now, and we just go for a straight 1,500 across the board.
I would just add into the $250 incentive.
Okay, so you want to leave it as a 500 backside payment?
No.
You want to leave it?
It'd be 1,500 front side, an extra 500, with an incentive in case, if they get their grade point up.
I would accept that.
I accept the
Okay. So, yes. But now I have a couple of other people.
Is that Pell or all scholarships? I should have a question. All scholarships.
All Pell and non-Pell.
2,400 of them.
Okay. Ms. Fulbright.
I think we should go for this. I wanted to do it last year, and I was told that we did not have enough money to do it. And I think 1,500 is just still a very small amount. And I taught down at Carl Albert, and as Mr. Thornton says, the $1,000 will hardly buy your books. And I just think it's something that will help these students go forward. And according to my calculations, it's actually been 8 or 9 years since this started off at $1,000. And look at how tuition has gone up so much right here in SU, and books have just skyrocketed. And I think even if we had to cut back on something else, that this is one of the most important things that we can do to help our people get out of this cycle of being undereducated and underemployed. They're underemployed because they're undereducated and they don't have the opportunity, and I just think this is one of the most important things that we can do. And I want to see it be at $1,500 straight across, and then we want the incentive added onto it. That's all right. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Ms. Fisher.
I was going to say, I know we're looking at the incentive, but I'm also looking at not just an incentive for a grade point. There's a lot of people in Eder County that make decent grades. They just drop out because they don't have no money. And, you know, I ain't worried about the grade point. They just drop out because, you know, their family don't have enough gas. I'm not just looking at grade point. I'm looking at giving them some incentive if they'll have more money to finish that semester.
Ms. Watts.
That's all I needed was clarification on that motion.
Okay. Dr. Cobb.
I'm going to end up being the bad guy here as the guy against education, and the truth is, nothing's further from the truth. I'm telling you right now, this isn't enough money. That's why I'm against this. Right, this is not enough money, and I want that on the record. We're going to come back and put more money in it, and we need a plan to know how much more. This is not enough money.
Mr. Austin.
Well, and I respect Dr. Cobb very much, and I want to add to the record that he's a friend of education, and he's probably right. If you looked at education inflation, it is through the roof. 1,500 is probably not going to get it, but tell that to the student in your district who's getting ready to go to school that we need to do a study. I say we go forward knowing, mindful, wakefully aware that we're going to fall far short of what we need to do. But at the same time, let's go forward in this next fiscal year. Let's do the study. Dr. Morton can run those numbers. He can come back to us, and then we can see what we need to tap to increase these funds. Frankly, we may need to lean on our Cherokee Nation businesses to kick in some more because the percentage right now is 30%. Maybe we need to increase that. But we can look at those things down the road. But right now, let's go with the 1,500, and we'll be doing something good for the students now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
And I pretty much, Charles said it, nobody thinks that Dr. Cobb is not for education. And if I thought that we could go to 2,000 or 5,000 and be physically responsible, boy, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And I pray that you come back in the budget cycle or midway with a better proposal that will add another 500 to it and a way to pay for it. And I'll second it if I get there quick enough. But I agree. Let's take it up this notch and study it and get our kids in school and keep them there.
Okay. I have two more people down, and then I'm going to end the discussion. Mr. Crickman.
Just a very brief comment. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's not maybe the best plan, but it is a plan, and we just kind of developed it here, and I fully support it.
Ms. Jordan.
I just want everyone in this, I know everybody in this room is for all the money we can get into education. I especially know that that is a correct statement with Dr. Cobb. We know, Dr. Cobb, myself, just about everybody on this council knows what education can do for you and where it can put you 30 years later. With that, I call for the question.
Okay. Questions be called. I'd already said I was going to end the debate. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye. Roll call.
Okay. Shall we get Shelley? She's on her way.
Just a maintenance deal for right now, could we just order in and keep on working?
No. Okay. Those, can we vote on it? No. Okay. The motion's been made that we add $500 to all scholarships up front, in addition to the $1,000, and $250 if they maintain a certain grade point average to be determined by Dr. Morton in the Education Department. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye, and those... Right, but I was clarifying what it was. Okay. So roll call, Shelley.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishenhoff.
Yes.
Meredith Grayling,
No.
Janelle Fulbright. Yes. Don Garvin,
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Kinda Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Chris Soap, David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Calvin Watt,
No.
Bill England,
No.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard.
No.
8-8.
8-8? The motion failed. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, make
Yes.
a motion to adjourn to lunch.
We recess.
With a friendly amendment recess.
Okay. And we'll be back at 2 o'clock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.